Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. I love Zoom. I get to be with you and stay in the comfort of my home in my jammies if I feel like it. So I am here with my husband, Rick, and a little bit about me. In 1988, I lost my entire right leg, my hip, and my pelvis to bone cancer. It was very aggressive and they had to treat it aggressively because it wouldn't respond to chemotherapy or radiation. And so I know a little bit about being a cancer patient myself, and patient is not a good word because I wasn't very patient. I just wanted to get better. I wanted to get on with my life. And through my whole journey, I have to say that my husband, Rick, was an incredible support person. I would close my eyes at night, he would be there. I'd open them in the morning, he would be there. He did things for me that no man should have to do for their spouse or their significant other. It was humbling, and it actually made me fall in love with him all over again, because you never know how strong you are until you're tested. And you think, I would never be able to do that. I remember watching Terry Fox running across Canada, and that was one of the reasons why we stopped in Thunder Bay, because his journey touched me on such a deep personal level, being an amputee with bone cancer as well. And it meant a lot to me to stop in Thunder Bay and travel a little bit in the same path and footsteps that he traveled. Rick traveled with me. And I think that for all you men out there going through prostate cancer, it's harder in some respect for you, because men are the fixers. You like to fix things when they're broken. And the one thing I really loved about Rick through my illness is he never ever saw me as broken. He didn't see me any other way as Glenda, who now just happened to have one leg. I remember lying in bed with him after I got out of the hospital, and he's gonna be going, no, don't tell that story, but I'm going to. In bed, and it was the first time that we had thought maybe it was okay to get intimate after my surgery, and I was scared to death. And I hope none of you are under 19. None of you are minors here. No kids in the audience. Good, because this might get a little X-rated. But I'm in his arms and I'm thinking, I'm terrified. This is not who he married. This is not who he signed up to be with for the rest of his life, for better or worse, sickness and health. We didn't really think of it as being this big a deal. And I'm in his arms and I'm trembling, I'm scared, and I'm thinking, is he going to be able to love the new me, the me that's, obviously disabled? And he wrapped me in his arms, and I told him how I was afraid that he would leave me because this was not the girl he married. And he looked at me in the eyes and he pulled me close. He whispered in my ear, honey, I did not marry you for your legs. And I'm so humbled. And then he goes, don't you know by now? I'm a boob man. And that's the way he treated me. He never treated me as being a one-legged lady. I was still the wife he loved. And I think having that sense of humor through the illness is what got Rick and I through the toughest parts. And I didn't expect that my cancer journey would impact his life in such a way that it would save his life. But it did, because I started volunteering with the Cancer Society, and I would give out little brochures and pamphlets about the skin cancer and sun scents. And one night we're sitting on the couch and I'm lightly stroking his arm, and I noticed a funny little spot there that hadn't been there before. And I'm going, hey, what's up with this? And I looked at it, and sure enough, it had all the ABCDs of skin cancer. And I said, you're going to get that checked. Oh, leave it alone. It's nothing. Typical man, comment. You guys do that too often. You say, leave it alone. It's nothing. It'll go away. It'll get better. And sometimes it doesn't. You have to know when to actually go see your doctor. So I sent him to the doctor on the premise that he was going to get his bunion looked at, because he could see that that needed some work. But I had phoned my friend who was our family doctor, Rosemary, ahead of time and said, Rosemary, when Rick comes in, I don't care about his bunion. He can live with that. But there's a spot on his arm I really want you to look at. So when he came in, she goes, hey, Rick, sit down a sec. I want to look at that spot. And sure enough, she did a punch biopsy and it came back malignant melanoma. So my cancer journey saved his life then. And my father's journey also saved his life, because my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1990, I want to say 1992. And I remember thinking, oh man, I don't know anything about prostate cancer. I have friends with breast cancer, but I hadn't ever had any experience with anyone with prostate cancer. So my dad's journey taught us so much. It taught us to go early. It taught us to go and learn the numbers, what they meant. It taught us to keep an eye on the bathroom habits and things like that my dad ignored. Dad would go, and he was a fishing fan with the doctor that he had, and they'd talk about fishing and where to go for the best steelhead and the best salmon fishing and who caught the big one and that sort of thing. But they would kind of skirt around Dad's real issue of why he was there, which was because he was having trouble peeing and getting up too many times and going to the bathroom too often, not being able to empty his bladder properly. And finally, when Dad was peeing blood, the doctor actually paid attention to his concerns. And by then it was too late. It had metastasized to the bone, and Dad passed away a year after his diagnosis with prostate cancer. So that was it for me. I just went, well, now I'm going to be hyper vigilant with Rick, and I would listen every time he'd go to the bathroom. And I'm going to just share. This is how the book starts. It says, come on, Rick, you've got to be able to pee harder than that. I was lying in bed with my head cocked to one side, listening intently to the sounds coming from the adjoining bathroom. And I think as women, we don't really pay attention to that sort of thing until it's pointed out to us that, he used to be able to pee a lot harder than that. And you didn't used to have to kind of go so many times during the night, 3, 4, 5 trips to the bathroom during the night. And all these things that we learned through my dad's journey. So I bless my father for saving Rick's life, because when I started to notice these things about Rick, he had started right after Dad died going for his annual digital rectal exam, the DRE, and the PSA tests. We had to pay for it because Rick was only in his late 40s. And he said, you're too young to worry about that. So I said, you know what? It's $40 well spent. We will skip a dinner out to pay for this. And that's what we did. We would just chalk it up to, this is your well-being, and pretend we're having a steak dinner out tonight because you're having your PSA test done. And it was in his probably mid-50s when the doctor said, oh, you don't have to pay for this anymore. He's of an age now where he can get it covered, which was lovely. And, an extra dinner out we got out of the deal. But by the time Rick was 58 and he went for his PSA test again, and annually, that was part of the deal, she noticed something. She noticed that his numbers had doubled in 1 year. And this is the important part of the whole thing for us, was knowing what the numbers meant. It went from 0.8 to 1.6, from 0 to 1.6, and it doubled. Well, 1.6 is well within the normal range. But I bless my doctor because she said, Rick, I know that's normal, but what is not normal is for a number to double. It should never double within a year. And even though it's low, we're still going to be checking this. So he went to see the proctologist, and sure enough, he got all that checked. And he looked at Rick, and I remember him thinking, with numbers that low, there's really maybe a 35% chance that it could be cancer. And he said, I can do a biopsy if you want, but really. And I said, you know what? If someone gave us a 35% chance of winning the lottery, I'm buying a ticket. Rick, you're getting the biopsy. And he's looking, okay, all right. The poor guy, he does what he's told. When it comes to things like this, you really have to pay attention to your health. And like I said in my book, I'm not a hypochondriac by any stretch of the imagination, but I am vigilant and maybe a little neurotic, but not a hypochondriac. When he went to get the biopsy done, they did a 10 needle biopsy, and this was in December. And when we were called in, she called us in December 23rd on her day off to go over the results. And I'm thinking, okay, there's no way she's going to be dumping bad news on us before Christmas. That's just, no, she wouldn't do that. And I kept thinking she probably just wants us to have a really good Christmas so that we can enjoy the rest of the Christmas without having that little cloud that sits over your head. And sure enough, she called us in, and she was very somber, and she goes, you know, I really was not expecting this with your number being so low, but two of the quadrants, or one of the quadrants, came back with 2 samples that were positive, and Gleason 6 and 7. Well, we're going, oh my gosh. And I don't think you're ever really prepared. And this is probably resonating with a lot of you, because this is a typical reaction when you get told this, and you're kind of going, oh boy, this is not what we were expecting. And then you just buckle up, you saddle up, you pull up your bootstraps, and you get going. They gave us, you know, so many options. We went to the radiologist and said, no, this isn't a kind of treatment that the radiation would be good for. And we decided the best course of action would be the prostatectomy, a radical prostatectomy. And we went back to that surgeon that had told us that I wouldn't even bother at 35%. Yeah, your chances are it's going to be nothing. We went back to him to see about the surgery, and he looks at us and he says, wow, I sure wasn't expecting that. And I says, no, neither were we. We've been reading about a nerve sparing prostatectomy. Is that something you're able to do? Because we were young. He was only 58 and I was young. I'll just say a real lot younger than that. And that was still important. Sex was still important to us. So the nerve sparing prostatectomy was our best option, and we wanted to know about it. Well, he goes, oh, he says, it doesn't really work. He says, you forget it. You know, I'll just get rid of the cancer and you go on about your daily life and you'll be fine. And I went, that's not really what we want to hear. So I said, you know, I think we need a second opinion. And you're allowed to do that. For those of you who are new to your journey or in it, you're allowed to get second opinions. And he wasn't pleased, but he understood. So there was a prostate center in Vancouver that we went to, because that's all they did every day. That's all they did was prostates. And the doctor, we Googled online and we got the best patient reviews, and we liked everything we read about him, we liked. And when we went into his office and we sat down in his office, we liked him right away, because the first thing out of his mouth was, so I bet you're wondering about erections. We're going, we like you. Yes, that's exactly what we were wondering about. Is that going to be an option for us? Is this something that you can do? And he goes, oh yeah, we've had really good success. And because of his age, and you're still sexually active. And yeah, he says, that's actually a very viable option. And we'll schedule you for surgery in May. And what I'd like you to do now, and this was, what month was it, Rick, when we went in? January, February, I think it was. And he says, just go on a great holiday and really have fun. And we knew what that meant. So we booked our Hawaii, Mexico trip for 2 weeks, and we loved it. We had so much fun. It was an adventure holiday, and we made love every day. Rick's going, shh, stop it, stop it. But we did, and we enjoyed every moment. Came home, and we went, I was booked to speak in Saskatoon at a cancer conference, and one of their keynote speakers was Rianne Booker. And have you had Rianne come and do a talk with your group yet? You must get Rianne to talk to you. Rianne Booker, she's a nurse practitioner, MN, BSCN, nurse practitioner. And she was at that time with the Tom Baker Cancer Center. She was the president of the Southern Alberta Sexual Health Association at the time I wrote this book, and she did a really nice review on it for me. But she was one of the keynote speakers there, and it was serendipitous because we found out so much about sexuality, about prostate cancer, how to cope, different techniques, and all sorts of things that we didn't know before. We had no idea. So it was very fortuitous to run into Rianne there and hear her presentation at the same time I was the keynote for my own prostate cancer, or my own bone cancer journey. And I also shared, of course, Rick's prostate cancer, what he was going through. This sort of thing, when that happens, you have to pay attention, because I always think that you're being guided and being led into the things that you need at the time that you need them. And Rianne was one of those gifts that cancer brought to us. When we got home, Rick's journey was really just beginning, because as those of you know, with prostate cancer, things change. And my dad had opted to just do the radiation because it was too far gone, and it was palliative, and that was a whole different set of issues that happened after his journey with that. So we went to prostate support group here, and bless you, Ed, for making your prostate group available, because it's a wealth of information. When Rick had his surgery, there was so much we learned the hard way. We learned that, one, you have to tell them that you're not circumcised when you go in. So that was that was an important one. And also to read the literature that they give you, even though there's mountains of it, man, we just were overwhelmed with all this. And the internet can be a very good friend, and it can also be an enemy. So when you're diagnosed with prostate cancer, one of the hardest things that we went through was the incontinence. And he loved his catheter. When he came home with that catheter, it was beer in, beer out, coffee in, coffee out. And it was a wonderful thing for him to have. The thing is that not all good things last, and the catheter had to come out. And we weren't really prepared. The doctor had told him ahead of time, make sure you do Kegels, make sure you do Kegels. What's a Kegel? He thought he was. I said, just, do your elevator. Every woman here, I bet you, as soon as I said Kegels, we're all doing one, and you can't tell. It's something women take for granted. We all learn it when we have kids, how to do a Kegel, and it gets everything back where it's supposed to be. But men don't necessarily have that same instinct for a Kegel that a woman has. And so he thought he was doing them right, but he wasn't. So when the catheter came out, he was shocked. He's going, I can't control my pee. It's just, I'm incontinent. So that was a real surprise. We went to stocked up on all of the continent aids and things that we could get, but it wasn't getting better. And can I share the clamp story? No, he's going, no. But we tried everything to try and get this under control. And some things worked and some things didn't work. So that was one that didn't work. And when we went to a support group, they told us about this nurse practitioner again that worked at the continence clinic at the Abbotsford Hospital. And she was amazing. She was absolutely amazing. The funniest part was we didn't know that we knew her. Well, I should say Rick didn't know that he knew her. When he went in there, this beautiful lady comes out, very stylish, very attractive, and her name was Nellie. And he's going, Nellie. Oh my gosh, that's Nellie from high school. He had a crush on her in high school, and here she was, his continence clinic nurse. So she hooked him up to these machines. And, by that time he goes, you know what? I just want to get better. I'm letting my pride go. I'm going to be humble in this and just get better. So she hooked him up to the machine, taught him how to do a Kegel. By the time she'd finished that one session, he stood up, prepared to pee on the floor like it usually happened when he stood up, and he was dry. The look on his face was absolute joy, because it opened up his life again. And that was the beginning of the real recovery, I'd say, for Rick, was when that happened. The sexual recovery took a lot longer. And I know he gets as red as his shirt, and that's probably why he wore red, so that you couldn't tell. But it's so true that for all of us that have been married or are married to a man with prostate cancer, that's one of the things that what men won't talk about and women need to know. It just is. And I think Rianne helped me a lot with that by saying, Glenda, everybody has sex. If you've got kids, chances are you've had sex. So I don't think there's anything that you need to be embarrassed about. I don't think there's anything that you need to go turtle. It's just part of life and part of what makes us human, and things that we talk about that you actually do need to know. For us, we had enjoyed a very active sex life. Rick always said, honey, it's the one thing I'm really good at, and now I can't do it anymore. But there's other things. And learning to be intimate doesn't just mean sexual intercourse. Learning to be intimate meant holding my hand, scratching each other's backs, giving each other a back rub. When I run a support group for partners in prostate, as I was saying, and one of the ladies said that they learned intimacy by setting the timer on the clock for 15 minutes. And in those 15 minutes, they had to connect with each other without touching any bathing suit parts. None of that. It was a back rub, a hand rub, a foot rub, a head rub. It was connecting on a non-sexual way that, guys, guess what? Women love that stuff. We actually really enjoy that. And if you could do that for 15 minutes without going to the bathing suit parts, we're calling that a big O, a really big O. Wonderful experience, and we love it. So please remember that to be intimate, you don't have to actually have the intercourse. You just have to connect, and being able to talk about it, being able to share what you miss, what you want. And Rick saying, please don't go into it. Just tell them to get the book, because it's in the back of the book, all the different techniques and the things that you can use to help yourself out. We went to try the needle therapy. Are any of you guys have you tried the needle therapy for, yeah? Bill, how's that work for you? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Thumbs up? Okay, Rick is terrified of needles, but we thought we'd give that a try. And honest to God, he almost passed out in the doctor's office just with me. He said, honey, you have to do it. So they didn't give us the real stuff, she says, because you'll never make it out of the parking lot. But she said, you have to practice with just a saline solution. And she sat there for probably 2 minutes trying to flick the air bubbles out. And I went, I'm not that vigilant, and I'll end up killing my husband with an air bubble. I don't want to do this, because he said I had to do it because he wasn't going to inject himself. He just said, no way. So she said, have you tried a pump, a penile pump? And we went to downstairs. She gave us the prescription, and we went downstairs at the prostate center to the pharmacy there and bought one. Was like $500, which is pretty pricey, but when you average out the cost of other things and that, it actually works. So the penile pump for the medical grade, don't get one from a sex shop, because we tried that too, and it's a money wasted. They don't have the same quality. So learning things like that the hard way. And I do want to make sure that you guys all know about after your surgery. Is anybody new to recovery? Anybody just had their surgery? Oh, you're all old timers. Oh, Mike, how 1 year? Okay, so you're past the immediate recovery. But when you guys get into new people coming in, and make sure you tell them that after surgery to wear tighty whities or tight boxers, not the loose ones where everything can just dangle. You have to have ones that hold the testicles up, because of that incision when the prostate is removed and they reconnect the urethra. That stretches, the testicles will put stress on there, and it can really slow your recovery down. I remember Rick went for a 5-kilometer walk, probably a week or two maybe after his surgery, and he came home and he said, honey, I'm sure my testicles are the size of footballs. They were, but it was that sensation, and they were swollen, but not that big. And that was one of the things the doctor said was, I guess I should have mentioned that. You have to keep the testicles up and snug, because the weight of them pulls on that incision, and it can really delay the recovery. So I think I have been talking for a long time. I'm sorry, Ed, but you probably have some questions, and what Rick and I have found along the way is talk to each other when you're sad, talk to each other when you're excited, when you're feeling good, share it. When you're feeling bad, share it. And spend time really connecting with each other without expectations of anything more than just being intimate without intercourse. And it's a very happy thing in your relationship. So I will turn this back over to Ed and see if you have any questions for me about this, or if I've gone too far.